Welcome back to the fifth or sixth episode of the House Mango podcast. Today I'm joined by Pia.
Oh.
I'm joined by John. And I'm joined by Linda.
Hello.
And today we are going to be talking about mental health. You guys brought some really cool questions. But before we jump in, I really do want to say, don't take everything we say as 100%. These are just our experiences or our responses to experiences and these questions. So take it with a grain of salt. We're just trying just like everybody else is. So with that being said, let's just jump right in. So I guess I'll read the first one. That's fair.
Sure.
So the first question, someone asked, how do you have the genuine and long-lasting passion or motivation to do things when you're dealing with something mentally? John.
Sorry, my first reaction is to always think of something humorous. And I was going to say, I don't know, man, I'm a Gemini. I was like, I don't have a. Characteristically, Geminis don't, we're like jack of all trades, master of none type thing. I don't believe in horoscope stuff. I only know it for cultural and conversational purposes. But since I'm already speaking, I'll take a jab at it. So I think as you kind of progress right in life, obviously there are many twists and turns that you will go down on, and eventually those things will lead to other, you know, projects, passions, motivations, right? Um, something that I've come as a retrospective, something I've come to as a retrospective is that there is something about um, just being introspective constantly. I think that as a human being, you should constantly be introspective and retrospective at a regular basis, right? And when we do those things, right, a lot of the times I think we tend to forget what gave us joy, what gave us passion, what gave us motivation. Because I think it's so easy to dwell on the negative as things progress, as you kind of go down in life and you lose those motivations or you lose those passions, right? So I think as when you constantly look back and reflect, right, you're going to stumble upon something, no matter how small, how big, right, that you felt very akin to, motivated by, passionate about. And during those times, right, I think it's important to grasp onto the tiny joys in life, right? Because I think those are the things that pull us through the dark times, is when you're getting to reflect on something that made you happy in the first place. And I guess, like, in a direct correlation, right? When you remember those things, right? Hopefully you're able to act upon and kind of continue on in those things. And of course, this is if you have the time to, or et cetera, et cetera. I'm always of the mindset, you can always make time. Um, there are a lot of things that I think that we probably pseudo put a lot of effort into when it's very low effort. I think we just like to make bigger deals of things than they actually are. There's probably some priority, quote unquote, in your life that probably aren't as big. I think you just need to reevaluate how you're approaching certain things, and then you'll probably find and make those seconds your own again. Finn.
I think I agree. I like the prospective, introspective stuff, but I find looking back sometimes I go in a cycle where oh, I tried this before, but it didn't work. So to balance it out, I also try to think about what to look forward to. I find it to be a big help. Whether it be for example, if I wanted to because I was just watching Kuya's last episode, so they were talking about like providing for other people you care for. I try to look forward to that to like push through like the dirty work that I don't want to do, but I have to do, like school. And I also try to like to jumpstart getting back into the rhythm of things when I've had a bad season. I try to I don't know if this is the healthiest, but I try to like romanticize everything. So if I'm like in a cafe, I'm like, wow, I'm in a cafe studying. And then I'm like, okay. So that kind of jump starts things. But it's like it's not definitely not sustainable. But like it gets me there. And then I get to use like a different way of thinking to kind of like continue my flow of work or whatever I need to do. So yeah.
When did you want to go next?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And this is actually something I personally kind of, I'm also dealing with this a little bit too. And I think for me, one thing I want to try to do is see how far I've gone and look at the baby steps I took and just be proud of myself of taking those steps and to tell myself that I can do this again or like I can get back into the groove, of things after going through something mentally. So I think to move forward and like to like keep the long lasting passion and like motivation to do things is to make sure that you know that you can do it. And know that you've come so far from that. And I feel like if you stop now, it's like, you just kind of like lose your potential of like doing something big in the future. So yeah, that's kind of what I kind of lean towards and think with that.
yeah, this one I just keep reading it over and over again because I just want to understand the question more and more. But I feel like one of the things that jumped out at me from what you guys said was just seasons. And I feel like that's how I try to view things often is to me in life there's always a season to something. Like there's always that beginning, there's always that middle, there's always the end. But it's a cycle, I think. And I mean one of the examples that I could think of that I know John can probably relate to is like because we were talking about the other day with like college and like we used to write a lot. And I know we've mentioned that in like other podcast episodes or like maybe in passing, but it's just like um I feel like a motivation or like for example a motivation for John and I is to find like connection or to find relationship and to like nurture it with people that we care for. Um and like this podcast I feel like is the product of that evolution of that tiny seed. Um and you're right, like when I look back I was like why the heck did we write like that like crazy. But now
Emo.
yeah, we were so emo in college. But it's interesting now, especially with like the context that we have now or the life experiences that we have now, because I feel like that stuff informs how we deal with situations now. Um, and you're right, like whenever there's like a hard point or a hard a moment, it's like we've talked about it last episode where it's just you just kind of remind yourself of how far you've come or how far you've gone. Especially like schooling or your work or any like passion or hobby. There's always like it's very easy, at least for me, to get stuck in the details of it that I don't really realize how far things have gotten. But you know, it's good to take a moment to stop and turn around and smell the roses for a little bit, which is true.
Yeah, I also find that we also need to be gentle with ourselves. And it's like, if you can't do it today, it's okay. Like, if you can't do it tomorrow, it's okay too. Like, don't, I think like for me especially, like I'm like my own worst critic. Like I'm like, oh my god, I didn't do. I also write too, so like it's like, oh my god, I didn't do like 500 words today that I told myself I would do. But like, that's okay because it's like, you can do it another day. You can try again. Like I think the key is like you can keep trying and keep going for it. And I think that's what kind of keeps you motivated.
I
Yeah.
also, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I think what Linda and Kuya said kind of ties into I think like a misconception people have about like the question says genuine and long lasting passion or motivation. And like when people think of that, it kind of sounds like a nonstop, you love doing this. But I
Yeah.
think it's
Mm-hmm.
also good to like remind yourself like this part where you're going through like a something mentally, that's part of like the long lasting
Mm,
slash motivation to do things because it's a lot about like resilience, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know.
yeah.
I think that's like a good thing to keep in mind. And like Linda said, you can't beat yourself up mentally. And
Yeah.
also you can't like because I know on Instagram I see all these like or like screenshotted Twitter threads, they're like, take breaks, like drink a lot of water. At some point you have to also stop taking those breaks because things are gonna get worse if you're not like progressing with the thing you want to do. So it's like a really thin line between taking care of yourself and also just like toughening up. And that's also like different for everyone, depending on like how you were raised or whatever, or what kind of background we come from. Because in my school, I realized like there's a lot of like legacy kids, and I hear a lot of people, especially people who like you can tell they are paying a lot to go into like this school. They're saying things like, "Oh, these kids in my private school would thrive here," and I'm like, "Yeah, of course, because they had all these resources like the rest of us probably didn't have. Of course, they would thrive in a place like as fast place as this." And don't have to like care about having other jobs or whatever. So there's always like a lot of context and I guess being kind to yourself and not be conditioned to like whatever everyone else is telling you to do. But yeah.
I mean, you hit it, I feel like, on the nose too, where it comes from like background. I feel like we can all kind of share in that a little bit because, like, I know for myself, it's very easy to be almost self deprecating. like,
Mm,
and you know what I mean? Like, where someone says, like, oh, you did a good job. And I'm like, well, it wasn't good enough. Like,
yes. That's exactly it. Yeah. I'm like that too.
and it's like, it's horrible. It sounds horrible when I say it out loud because it sounds like it sounds so poor. But it's like I think what's genuinely helped me to get through that is like talking about it with people like my sister or like Lyra or Pia, like as a sounding board, and like they just slap me in the face and they say it's like you're doing fine. And hearing that some days is tough because you like just sit there and cry. But I don't know. It's interesting that you mentioned that because that's the first thing that I thought of is like,
Mm.
I mean, like for myself, like I come from like a Filipino background. My dad never really said anything that was like super affirming or anything like that. Like I grew up like playing basketball, and his words to me after the game wouldn't be "you did a good job." It would be "you need to fix your jump shot." Like you need to fix your defense. You have to stay in front of them. And I would just be like, "This sucks." But I feel like that has turned into what is like, "Oh, you did a good job at work today." Yeah, well, could be better. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I went through like it's getting a little personal, but I went through counseling to like kind of break those cycles because I also come from like our we know each other's parents. Like we
Hmm.
come from kind of similar things. Like one of them tries to build you as a person, the other one builds you as like a cog in society or whatever. So it's like it's good to try to continually like break those cycles and create healthier ones, which is what I'm trying to do. And I'm trying to like whenever I talk about counseling or therapy, I like to be transparent about it because I feel like it should be normalized instead of being like, oh, someone has like a crutch or whatever. It's not um like minus points for you or anything.
Mm.
But yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I've been just so my my first reaction to like very serious topics is usually like through humor, which is probably not the best.
Not-
But I was just thinking back when you said resilience, I was like, Ron, do you remember when I was on e-board and we had like the Filipino word of the day?
Yeah, I do.
And when P was like resilience, I was like, oh, that's a good word. That should be like the word of the podcast, like resilience. And then when when you're someone was talking about like the like talking about uh trying like to do things differently, or I think it was P was saying that like trying to do things and looking back and then understanding like you didn't succeed in certain things. The first thing I thought, and it's because I'm like an avid fan of National Treasure. When Nick Cage quotes Thomas Edison, he goes, "I have not failed however many times of making a light bulb. I just found out however many times,
To
or
not
like, I
make
haven't
one.
I would say like make the light bulb. I found however many ways to not make one.
Uh-huh.
Right? Um, yeah, I'm bad. Don't listen to me when it comes to these things.
I think that's good. I feel
Uh,
like overused phrases or words are overused for a reason too. So
yeah,
it's like
Mm-hmm.
nice.
yeah. I don't know. I'm also like sometimes I think about mental health. I'm not like the best person to speak on it. I'm very much about like you know you just got to do it, um, no matter what. And like when Ron was talking about like how he's like self-deprecating in a way where he's just like, well, you did a good job. Well, yeah, could have been a little bit better. I think about that all the time. Like I always think like I know I did a good job, right? But it could have been a little bit better, right? Like I think we know our own capacity and like what it takes. And I think sometimes it's akin to almost like maximum effort is akin to burning yourself out. Would you agree? Like maximum
Mm-hmm.
effort
Yeah.
is when you're like feeling to the point of exhaustion, or you're like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
mentally you're like, oh, I'm done for the day, and you're like, oh, I know I put in 100% of my effort,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because that's how I feel when I'm like, when I feel like that, then I'll be like, oh, I gave it my all today, even though like the same level of work probably could have came out if I didn't even feel exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
I think we just have like certain thresholds of how we measure success or how we measure, what we think is good work
Mm-hmm.
akin to what is poor work. Um, I think those are things that are meant to be evaluated because I think I don't think anyone wants to stamp their name next to bad work, right? I think we all want
Mm-hmm.
to put our name next to good work. And if you're like that, then I think it's okay to be a little bit more forgiving. Like, just evaluate what success looks like to you. And if success looks like a certain thing, how you get there doesn't really matter, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you put 100, if you put 80, if you put 70, right? Success is still success in your eyes. So,
Yeah. I think that's a good way to cap it. Um, so really good question, whoever asked it. That's tough. But Pia, did you want to read the second one?
Yeah. So the second question says, do you have a system in regards to time management coming from a student? That wasn't me, by the way. Not full disclosure.
John.
I am the worst student. If you ask Glendale, like my time management as a student was god awful. I was staying up late at night just to cram because I was too busy like goofing off in like the cafe or like, you know, I don't even know, probably just watching way too many YouTube videos. but like I was, I'm definitely not qualified to answer this.
See, it's funny you mentioned that because like I'm the complete opposite. Like I would be made fun of for finishing like a term paper 2 weeks in advance.
Oh
It's
no.
Yeah, like
Wow.
I the
That's
you're crazy.
impressive.
I would be people would make fun of me so hard because they're just like, how do you like are you doing it in regular time or Ron time? And I'm like, okay. That's like the number one thing everyone kept saying. And
Wow.
That's crazy, dude. I've
That's
submitted
impressive.
papers on the dot, like
no,
11:59.
no, I would hand it in like 2 weeks early, and the professor would be
Wait,
like,
you would hand it in too?
yeah.
Like you're not like just letting it
No, like
marinate
no,
and
no,
like
like because to me, like once I'm done with something, I know I'm done with it, and I've gone through it, I've proofread it, so I
whoa.
send it, I move on because there's other things on my plate that I know I need to get done.
That's so good.
Now that's very good time management.
Wait, I'm
D-
curious. Like, how is John? How have you like changed over time since college? Because
Money.
oh, true. So
Um, so I think as a student, there's a certain stake um that you have as a student. Um I think we have to evaluate what's your stake in college, right? Like what's at stake? Is it because like if you for some people, I think when I was in college, I think I was not very worried about what was going to happen if I had a poor grade, right? Because I'm just like, oh, tons of people get jobs outside of college without a college degree, whatever, right? Um, so I was very lackluster and very lackadaisical in my approach to time management as a student. Um, and as I've and I as I think I've become as an adult, right? Uh, there are things that I've become better time management of just because I realize the value that comes behind it, like the peace that I get if I arrive to the airport early, right? Or um, knowing that if I do my laundry ahead of time, right, I won't have to look for clothes to wear to wherever I have to go.
Mhm.
Things like that. And as I've come into the workforce, I think for me, as I progressed, like one was monetary compensation for my effort. And I was like, if I better time manage myself, right, the more desirable I will be as a candidate.
Mm.
And as you climb and continue in your journey, whatever, whoever is listening to it, no matter what field you're in, time management is very important. And my thing is that I would rather work with someone that has great time management and a great personality than someone who absolutely knows their stuff, right? And is a genius. Because these are two things I can't stand. But having time management and having a great work attitude or personality is something that I desire. Um, and those things, like, I think are more important. Um, but I would say my progression really much came through like just getting money. I wouldn't say it's like a personal growth thing too much. Because I think even when I got a job, like I think the whole time management of like doing laundry and getting to the airport, like all those other things, right, like came after because I just learned that because of work. Uh, so do I have a system in regards to time management though? I would say, as corny as it is, you should really write a timeline of like when things are due and then create milestones for I sound like a PM, Linda. Like just create milestones for yourself. So like if you're starting on like a paper, right, by this date, right, you should say, oh, I should have 5 sources by this time, right? That's a milestone. What's your next milestone at the next date, right? And if it should be like I should have X amount of words, or I should have X amount of pages at this time. That's next milestone. And then you're like, what's after that? Oh, proofreading.
Hmm.
Right. So these are all like actionable items. And if you set yourself dates to do these things and like dates that make sense, right? Like don't set dates like I'm gonna do this day, and then the next day I'm gonna finish. Like that's not realistic.
Smart goals, baby.
Yeah. Um, but I think setting goals, as corny as it is, like I was not about goals in college. I was like, oh, that's so corny. I was like, bro, like who needs this? Like I have it all up here, dog.
No,
But as I got older, like these are very important things, and like it's easier when you have visual and actionable goals to work towards, even they're just words on paper or on your computer screen.
yeah, I would agree with that. I think especially in context of being a student, I'll tell you what I did. So at the beginning of every semester, I would look at each syllabus and write down like the course ID number, the assignment, and the due date in Google Tasks. Or because like back then it was like on like or now rather it's like on your Gmail and you can pull it up to the right of it or you can have it on your phone. And then I would sort it by due date and I would only have a list just for assignments. Like I would call it like assignment to do list, and I would just go one by one by one by one. Once I saw the due date, and I was like, oh shoot, that's like in like 3 4 weeks. All right, I'm gonna work on it this weekend because I want to get it out of the way because I know that I need to get this other thing done that's due in 2.5 weeks. And I would just play that game. But what worked for me was like I don't, and this could this could not be you listening or you guys here, but like I do not like working in installments. I hate installments.
Mm.
Because like to me, like once I have my train of thought and once I'm in my flow, I can't stop it. If I stop it, it feels like I'm when I pick it up again, I'm like this is different, and then I scrap the entire thing. So it's like that's why I would set aside time, like when I'd be working the desk as a DA, I would be sitting there writing papers because it was just like it's 2 or 4 hours whether it was a double, and I'm just like okay, I'm gonna get this paper done by the time I leave my shift, and then like all right, then I'm like okay, once it's done and I have the general source of it and everything, then I go through it one more time, and I'm like okay, that seems good, send. Because then it's just crossing things off the list. Um, and I feel like now, like the importance of that hasn't like, uh, um, it hasn't grown so much, but more so like now I get what John is saying when it's just like you turn to be an adult and now like now you really got to get into gear and you're like okay, this bill is due at this date, this one's due over here, I need to make sure that this stuff is ready by the time I go to this place so that I can be ready for that. Like it's just morphed, like it's taken a new angle.
The best way I can say is like uh like I think there are certain phrases that adjust your mindset or like adjust your perspective. And instead of just saying like, oh, I need to complete by this day or I just need to finish this, I think the best way to put it is like, how do I set myself up for success?
Hmm.
And identifying what success looks like to you. I think those are key phrases that change your like or shift your mindset and shift your lens over to a different way of viewing how you're approaching, I guess, tasks or things that need to get done. Um, but yeah, I wish I had this when I was a student, or just it's so funny just because like I would never have done this like ever. And like what's funny now is that like Linda knows like I think our profession is built around like 2 week sprints
Yeah.
for a tech. So like we have actionable things and like task lists and like milestones that we reach. And like we identify like what success looks like for like our I guess for like our sprint and like what's our backlog and all these other like things. But
Hmm.
yeah, would
Yeah.
that past me would never ever
Yeah.
contemplate.
Yeah, and like as you like when you're in a job and you're like doing these tasks, like you start learning how long it takes for you to do something, and so like it's like easier to time manage after that, because then you're like, okay, it took me 2 days to like do this task, so okay, like if there's a task that's similar to that, then I know like kind of what my workflow looks like, and like I know exactly how to manage that. But when I was a student, I was like, so there's like the spectrum. It's like John, and then there's Ron, and I'm like I think I'm in the middle. So I like to the way I like to do.
Degenerate right over here, and then like wrong, like
Extremist over here.
I feel like I'm right in the middle, where it's like, so the way the system that I had was I like to time box things, and that included like activities. So like, okay, if I wanted to watch a TV, right, or something like that, I'd be like, okay, but I have a paper due. I can only watch 2 hours of TV, and that's it. And then I have to start working on my paper, and I will start working on the paper for this amount of time or whatever. And so I love that, Ron, you said you don't like installments. So I'm actually the type that I like to write a bit of my paper across like maybe like a week. So if it was like a paper due in 2 weeks, I wouldn't start doing it until there's like a week left. And I'll be like, okay, I'll start this on Monday, type a paragraph, and then come back to it and just type another paragraph. And so like, yeah, so it would just be like I would do tasks in like very specific times. Yeah, it wasn't, I don't know if it was effective. It was effective to me, because it for me it felt like, oh, I was, so like by like the, I don't know, the last day before the due date, I didn't have just a blank page. I had at least like half a page or something to work with, and that made me feel good. so so I'm like, oh, I already wrote like 2 paragraphs, it's fine, I just need 3. Cool. So yeah, so that's kind of how I did it as a student. So yeah, so it was like I kind of had like both, like I don't really want to do it, but I'll just do it anyway. I'll just like put out a little bit of my time each day to do these like assignments or papers or whatever. So
all about the blank page, baby.
I
motivator.
That's like that would give me so much anxiety.
Well, okay, but
I live with that a lot.
but
I like to surf that edge.
but here's the thing: it's like I would always endeavor to have a 2-week gap, basically, of assignments in each class. But the reason isn't what we really think. The reason is so that I could play more video games. Like, or like have moments to myself that like wasn't like under the gun, that I would sit there and be like, ah, shoot, like this one's, and like, you know, sometimes like professors will give like random assignments, and I'm like, okay, now I can pivot to that because I have at least a 2-week gap where I'm not super worried. So the video game sounds really horrible, but I barely played in college anyway. Like,
For me, I like, okay, so everything on a spectrum, like John to Ron, Linda in the middle. I'm still a student. I'm like in the middle of my like college career. I'm like a pendulum. I go in between the two, you know? Because like I start off like Kuya. I'm like so I get, the thing is I start off like doing things early, but then I get so cocky about it. I like start goofing around, and I don't realize how fast the deadlines come up, and then like there I am in trouble. But I think I'd like to think I'm going towards the middle. The pendulum is like stopping a bit in the Linda range, mayhaps. But I think the biggest thing, like as a student, is like my biggest thing was underestimating how much everything took. So what I do is like I have a post-it note. It's like Monday, or like it says the days of the week, and I always say like look at this subject's homework, because just looking at it sometimes helps me realize like, oh, okay, I probably need to start this earlier, or it makes me realize like, okay, this is actually not that bad. But I think that helped a lot. And oftentimes, if you look at it early enough, you realize you remembered something, like one of the problems or like the prompt is familiar to you, so you decided to start writing something. And that could go for like maybe 1 or 2 questions or paragraphs, or like you end up maybe doing most of it, if not all, in one sitting. And if you have like no idea what's going on, at least you have it in like the back of your mind in case like you happen to stumble across the idea again or figure out how to solve it in the meantime. So I think that's like the most student specific like tip I can get. But it's like interesting to hear about all the stories. I used to time block like Linda too, but I ended up getting super stressed because I like set up super unrealistic times. So now I stick with like the to-do lists and whatever. But yeah.
Yeah, it feels good to check off things off your to-do list. Like
Yeah,
the
I
best
write
feeling
things
ever.
sometimes if I forget to write it down, I write the task and just to cross it
Just-
off.
Oh my god, me too. I do that. I do that too.
Like I still use to-do lists at work because it's like I understand what the week is like and I'm like, all right, I know that I need to get this done by this day because we've reported to the government. Like I gotta cross this off now. Like so I love post-it notes, I love to-do lists. So but it's just interesting seeing the spectrum of all of us in here.
I'm a much better person with time. Like I'm a much better time time manager. I'm much better at time management than
Mhm.
college John Way. But sorry, my wife is staring at me, thinking I think she thinks I'm lying.
I also feel like in college you weren't doing things that were like for me I was like homework is just for like for me to pass. Like it wasn't anything to like add to my
Mhm.
own life. I don't know how to say it, but
No.
that's the best way I could say
The
it.
stakes
No
are real
value.
now.
Yeah, exactly.
There was no real value to homework.
Yeah.
Like you just thought if you worked hard enough, like you could just be like, oh, like whatever, like I could just like work hard enough and get a grade and pass the class.
Uh-huh.
And, like there's a certain threshold of passing the class, and then you don't have to worry about it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But like the
Mhm.
stakes are so much more real as an adult,
Yeah.
where you're like, oh, my like compensation, my promotion,
Yeah.
like my safety of my job,
Yep.
right? Like how my company performs, like all very real
Yeah.
stakes.
The
Yeah, for sure.
stakes become so real that it's like,
Yeah,
okay, if I don't
that's so
do
true.
well, I don't have a job. If I don't have a job, I can't pay off my car. If I can't pay off my car, I
Yeah.
can't do like like it's just like
Yeah,
the
Yeah,
exactly.
like
snowball rolling down the hill.
I don't have a job, I can't buy keyboards, like just awful.
It's
What a life
horrible.
to live.
What a
Like,
life
keyboard
without
almost
keyboards.
dead. Oh my god.
It's like what a life with membrane keyboards.
Sacrilege.
I feel
But
like after this episode, I'm gonna have nightmares about missing classes or something. You know those like dreams that you have that you're still in school,
Yep.
and I'm just like, what, am I in school still?
Didn't you just have a dream that what was it? You were assigned like a P0 ticket or something?
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh, and I don't even work for the company anymore.
Oh my gosh. Wait, yeah, you were like you had a P0 ticket and then like what was it? Like someone set you up for failure or something?
Sabotage.
those
I'm trying to
yeah,
find it.
I
Yeah,
get
because I don't
dreams
work
like
for the
that. I get it.
company.
Oh, I had a bad dream that some person from our company uh
Yeah,
started a group DM with me in it about some P0, which is like the highest priority ticket.
yeah.
Um, because I was the only active person on Slack, and now I'm paranoid, so I just put myself as a
Oh my dear. It's
That's
okay.
funny.
It's
Yeah,
okay.
I don't know the context of it, but it was just like, yeah. I just woke up and I got so scared, so
You're like
nervous.
mid sweat. You're like
Yeah.
I think we answered that question to its fullest. All right. So, John, do you want to read the third question?
I can. I feel like I'm in youth group right now, and
Do you want to read the third verse, John?
you're like avoiding eye contact. Who wants to close us in prayer? Okay, so what are ways you cope when you're alone and can't call slash see somebody in the moment?
Kuya, you should answer this one.
Sorry, I just have another. It's inappropriate. I
Is
won't
there
say it.
another
Oh
joke?
no.
Yeah, it's
Another
okay. Yeah, I won't say it. We probably have minors listening to.
You can say after.
I'll say it after.
um, I feel like we answered this before, or maybe I'm just like misremembering things. But basically, I could answer this in the context of like my family when I was away at school, and like Lyra when I'm at home. That's probably the best way I could answer this question. Um, the coping part is hard. Like when you miss your family and like you live like an hour and a half, an hour and 45 minutes away. That's tough. And so what I would try to do is like surprise them on the weekend, and there's an infamous time where I surprised my mom and sister. So basically, like I told my sister, I'm like, yo, just like open the garage door, be like, you're gonna get something real quick, and like I'm gonna pull in. And I pull in. My mom's freaking out. She gets the bat. She gets the bat. She runs. Like she ran down the stairs at lightning speed. She doesn't even remember how she got down the stairs. And she took Risa by the shirt and like pushed her back because she saw this car just randomly moving into the house, which was me. She was so mad. She was like, "Why didn't you tell me anything?" I was like, "Mom, were you about to throw the bat at me?" And she was like, "Yes." I was like, "You're about to damage me and this car." Yes.
That's a protected mother right
No,
there.
and it's good. It's a good thing. But that's how I would do things. Like I would surprise them, and I would like call them when I needed a moment. And I remember they would always say like don't worry about it. You're at school. Like focus on school. But like to tell someone that when you miss somebody is tough, right? Um, and then on the other flip side is like when I'm at home and like conversely, Lyra and I like live like an hour and 30 away from each other. Like that's tough too. Like when it's like someone you love and you know you can't be with them, and you know you spend time at school and you're with each other all the time, and now you can't. It's just like that's tough. So any LDR people, like I get it. But we would try, like it's even now, like we do things. Like I've definitely gotten better at it, at coping with it, because like I would have moments where I'd just be in really really like low states because I'm like, well, I can't see you, and it's like, you know, can't hang out, blah blah blah, and it's like that was just tough. But I've definitely gotten better over the years, and now we just like, you know, like we'll meet up in like New Brunswick, or like we'll meet up and we'll get food, and like we'll meet up and like we'll watch a movie at like the IMAX theater over there because it's fun, and like we'll watch like Jordan Peele's Nope because we want to just like, you know, so it's nice. And I think especially too, like I've gotten better at being okay with the distance, and it's just like it's okay, like, you know, like she trusts me, I trust her, we're chilling, like we're having fun, we see each other when we can see each other, um and like with the idea that it's not going to be always like that in the future, you know what I mean? um so it's like I think adulting has helped with that, is that just like you become a little bit more almost self-sufficient, and you're just like you're not always dependent on something or someone, and you know, you make things happen when you can. That's I feel like is part of the freedom of an adult. Is like, you know, when you just decide and you're like, okay, I'll see you there in like an hour. Okay, see ya. And then that's it. I hope I answered the question correctly.
Yeah. I think I definitely talked to Kuya about this a lot before, being on like separate campuses with Kevin, for example. But I think like the mistake I made before, because I'm like still very immature, but I remember whenever we would see each other, I would like try to grasp it every second, then end up like when he leaves, I end up like being really sad. But I realized like just kind of not focusing on the scarcity of it helped me better deal with that over time. Like it's been over a month now, I think about to be a month, and then I feel okay just because I like try not to put those times on a pedestal too much. Like I still value them, but I don't like woe to me, I can't see them or whatever. But yeah, in terms of my family though, I try to do the same. It's hard because like with siblings, you don't want to show them that you care, but you like really do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, it's like when you say bye, you're like, "See ya, bro. Like, I'll see you." in,
No,
Like
no, no. When
months.
when they say love you, and you're just like, yeah.
I'm like, I'll tell it back to you on Discord, just not right now, because like, I would. Yeah. So I know Troy like texts me every day, which is really nice. And like we call, he always says like, "Do you want to call?" And then like we call if we want to, but I don't know. Still navigating it, especially because I don't have like the freedoms to like see them whenever or
Just
just like
decide and
travel.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yo, Ron. All you gotta do, bro. Just gotta.
Look, okay. Look, it's happening. It's soon. Okay, not like immediate soon. There's a goal. Okay, I have my goal list by 30. I know when I'm going to do it.
I'm part of this.
Yeah, Pia is part of it.
Bro.
She's part of the planning.
Did
John.
she listen to this podcast?
Wait, me too.
She might not be listening right now.
Oh, okay.
John, I could send John.
What? Uh, what?
Yeah. What? Oh.
Nothing. I brought it up as like a joke. Like,
It's
He's watching.
What's happening?
like soon, like.
Yeah.
Like soon as in like this year?
Or soon as in
Hold
like
on, wait.
Or like
year?
Wait, let me-
ambiguous. You're
I'm
giving me
gonna.
an ambiguous.
I'm leaving
like,
it ambiguous because she might be
Okay.
listening.
Okay.
But John, I'll text you.
Ambiguous range. Okay, cool.
I need to like tell my wife, be like, honey,
Is it what I think it is?
yeah.
Yay!
Oh.
Aw.
Really, congrats.
Not yet. Not yet.
Early.
Early
Too
congrats.
early. Too early because the ambiguous range can be,
Yo,
you know.
John.
I think he's a little too excited. He's so excited.
I'll make myself available. So
Oh.
I'll make sure to take you guys out. Okay.
No, so well, you should because
What?
He's just throwing you off now. He's just
no, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm like,
Here, this is one. Yeah.
Oh, I want to know too, but it's okay.
Huh?
Can I say something?
Yeah, you can say
Some-
something.
Hey, Ron,
hi.
word of advice. Listen to what she wants. Don't listen to her parents. That's what John
So-
did. He messed up.
Oh,
Just
Oh,
if she wants it private, I don't care what the parents say. Make it private.
Good advice.
Words of advice.
noted.
Beyond the scope of the question, I just realized.
Hold on.
Imagine it's like a minor, and you're like telling them just get married.
just put a ring on it.
Just put a ring on it, dog. Okay, let's
Let's
go back to
Funny.
the question. Okay. Um this is hard for me to answer in a I guess what is deemed a healthy answer and I guess what you would view as like today's climate. Um because so I think like prior to when so with my family, like we're not the type, like we're very much like result oriented type people. And so like when I was away at school, right, like I wouldn't call them, they wouldn't really call me. It would just be like, just focus on whatever. And I think just because of those things, they like instilled in me Like obviously, like I don't act upon the same thing back to them because they don't do the same for me. Doesn't mean I don't love my parents, right? It's just that like those actions just don't come to the front of my mind. Um, and even now, I guess it's a little different now, right? As an adult, like I can just get up and just like I literally just came from my parents' house, like right before hopping onto this call. Um, but like on the regular, like I'm not gonna be like, oh, I'm feeling lonely, time to call someone. I think like all I do is like I just like to fill my time up with things to like not think about those things. I think that was how I did it a lot in school when I was like away from my parents. And obviously after school, I was with my parents all the time, so I never had to do those things. And now that I'm away from my parents, I now have the freedom to. So naturally, circumstances have changed. And then I guess when Glendale and I were date dating, because now we're married. I think when we were dating, um, it was I think when we couldn't necessarily see or call, we made it a point. We for 8 years we called each other every day. Okay, like there's never a time or period where like we didn't call. Like every day at night we would FaceTime each other. And I think because setting something that's frequent, right? Even in the moment, if I wanted to, I would just say, "Oh, it's okay. I can just see them later," right? Um, so I never really had to cope, right, with like if I was alone and I wanted to see someone because I always knew at the end of the day I was gonna talk to her anyways. So I never really had, and like for the better part of like I can barely remember like anything prior to our relationship in terms of like my past relationships. Like I don't think I ever felt that alone. Or I don't think I ever was just like, oh, like what PA said, like, woe is me, I'm lost in my thoughts, like what to do now, like, oh my goodness. Um, and I was always really good with just filling my time up with whatever random things to do. Like it was like crap, like I learned how to cut hair through YouTube, or like I learn how to cook through YouTube. Like there's just so many things that like I just did. I always kept my time busy that I never really felt like I was like, oh, so alone, thinking about whatever. You know, I just always had my mind on something else. Not necessarily a good thing. I'm just saying, like, but like that was my experience with like coping. Like never really had to.
I think that's pretty, I think healthy, in my opinion, because the biggest advice I got from my counselor, shout out to my counselor. I'm like
You say
quoting.
that it's not healthy then? What your counselor said?
No, she said it's good because when I was like fixated on not seeing Kevin, like she said, because I tell her about all my friends. She's always like, "Do you remember like Vivian, Tiffany, Zay? Like, there's all these friends I have at school who I can contact. Like, sometimes I just forget that I can just randomly text them, like I randomly text Kevin or like my family. So it's like a good reminder to also busy yourself. Like, even though you feel alone, I bet like if you like reached out more, you would feel less so. I don't know how to word it, but like, yeah, just like also going back to like appreciating the small things. There's definitely other things you have access to, like other than the people you miss, that you can like fill your time with. But yeah.
Linda, do you have
Yeah.
anything to add?
I actually have a hard time. Like, I think growing up or throughout childhood and like just high school, college, I have a really like it's hard for me to reach out because I'm always thinking, is that person gonna be bothered by me reaching out? Like I always have that in my head. It's always like, am I gonna be like a burden? Like, are they gonna like? And I also hate being ignored. So it's like reaching out is like there is a chance of being ignored. But if you don't reach out, then like there is no chance of you being ignored because you didn't try it. So I had that mentality for a long, long time. And I tried to like unlearn that and just like, be natural with it and like do the things that you feel you want to do. If you want to talk to someone, go ahead and just do it. If they ignore you, it's okay. Like, that just shows them who they are versus who you are, kind of thing. So I kind of always have that in my mind. Yeah, I think a lot of the times I'm like the opposite of John. Like I have no like I'm always like I can't busy myself for whatever reason, but I think that's also why I became such an avid reader. So whenever I have these moments, I just like pick up a good book and just start reading. And like for me, like reading really took me out of that, like I wouldn't say like bad mental state, but just more like, when I don't feel like, or like I can't see someone, or like when I do feel alone, I feel like I want to just pick up a book and just read and like just take myself out of that situation and just put myself in this like in this made up fantasy world in this book, and like I just immerse myself in there, and that's kind of how I cope with it a lot. I don't know if it's like healthy to do that, but I think that's what made me really big on reading and like picking up new books to read, because that was how I took up my time, or filled up my time. Yeah.
I think like all those things in moderation is good. Like it's healthy if it's in moderation. So yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
I concur.
Here. I hope we answered that question fully. I hope. Sorry.
We did. I think we did.
Okay. All right. Linda, do you want to read the final question for this episode?
Yes. Okay, so how do you prevent mindlessly scrolling through social media? A very, very good question.
John knows my answer.
Do I?
Yeah.
Ooh.
It was a blog
Oh,
post
no, yeah,
back then.
I know it. Yeah.
So I'll let somebody else go first.
What? I want to
But-
know.
Oh, okay. All right. Fine. Okay. Quit. Okay. No. Okay. So the reason why I say that, and that just happens for me, but like I remember we were studying for nursing in the study room, and like and I would just be scrolling, and then I like had an out of body experience where I was just like, if I could see myself right now, I just see myself scrolling for no apparent reason. Like it's like, go through Instagram, all right, done. Go through Snapchat, all right, done. Go on this one, done. And it's like that just scared me so hard. So I made like the most quick decision in my life, which was delete the accounts, delete the apps, and never go back. It's been nice.
That's awesome.
So I I left that behind. Literally, like Pia was over our house for New Year's Eve or New Year's, and she did a B reel, and I was like, let me try it out. I made a B reel, and I was like, yo, this sucks, and I just I uninstalled it, never looking back.
I feel like such a boomer.
No, I know. I feel like a
You
Yeah,
should just do it
I
every New Year's. Be
Like-
real every New Year.
yeah. I truly feel like a boomer, because there are people that are like, oh, have you seen this meme? And I'm like, no. They're like, you don't have a TikTok? I'm like, no. They're like,
Okay.
you're like, you don't even have, like, do you have Reels? No. Do you even have Snapchat?
don't
No.
You don't.
yeah, I deleted Snapchat, but that was because Instagram started doing the stories, and then I'm like, why would I have Snapchat when Instagram has stories? So I deleted Snapchat. But I can't seem to bring myself to delete Instagram.
No, I went the full scorched earth, and I deleted the
That's-
accounts. Like, it was like, are
Wow.
you sure you want to delete this account? I'm like, fart, yeah. Like, I'm done. I deleted everything.
That's
Like, I deleted
awesome.
Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat.
Yeah,
I deleted.
I don't think anyone really uses Facebook anymore, right?
No, it's
Like,
dead.
It's
right?
is it like a boomer thing now, or no, or like
I still use Facebook.
For what?
I use it because
The
I'm part of like groups. So like
Yeah,
it's like
Oh yeah.
Oh.
That's
I-
true.
separate. I feel like.
no, like I have groups that I'm a part of, and so they'll
Um,
post like a lot of these groups are all like volleyball open gyms. So it's just like,
Mhm.
hey, posting for this time,
Ah,
sign up, Venmo this time, etc.,
that
etc.
makes sense.
Yeah, but I'm not like
yeah.
posting actively. Back when
Yeah.
you had a wall in Facebook, okay,
Yeah.
you
Like the
know,
top 8
Oh
friends.
wow. And like the
They're
yeah,
very
yeah,
poking.
hard.
I'm not doing that anymore, right? Like I'm not even sharing anything on Facebook. I'm just there just to like for the groups. So I wouldn't say I'm a boomer, just boomer by association, I guess.
I think all
No,
of
I'm a
us have
boomer.
we've grown out of Facebook. I think there was a point where I was like on Facebook because I think that was the only social media pretty
Yeah, bro,
much that took off.
I'd be refreshing like all the time.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
what my boys I've seen.
Yeah, and like you post all the photos from the one night out in a photo
Yeah, and then
album.
you're like, you didn't know. Yo, I didn't know that you could create albums. So that's why, like, if you looked at my Facebook, I had like 200 pictures as my profile picture because I didn't know
A
at the
lot.
time. I was like 14, okay? Like,
Yeah. I get it. I get
Different
it.
pose this time.
Yeah.
it wasn't even just like of me. It was just like pictures I just had. Like, I wanted to upload.
Uh-huh.
And then I was like, oh, duh. I was like, why does it say
Yeah.
profile? The promising young career of an IT professional.
I think the biggest thing I got out of scrolling mindlessly was like realizing Instagram on Safari does not let you scroll memes or reels because the UI for Safari is so bad. You like the shorts don't even work. So I need Instagram for like social. Like people text me on there, so that's why I have it. But like in terms of
Yeah.
scrolling, you delete the app. But if you want to talk to people, just go on Safari, and you can't like you physically cannot scroll reels just because it's so glitchy. So there's that. But in terms of YouTube Shorts, like that, I don't know. I still fall into that trap a lot, but
No,
I don't know.
I
Just
think,
like,
yeah, I
recognizing
started
people
seeing
like stop.
it too.
I don't know.
it's funny that you mention that because like there was one night and like Lyra and Emily were really mad that I would refuse to have like a social media account. And this was like towards like the tail end of college or like so it was a considerable amount of time that I had been gone, and they were like, how are we going to keep up with you? I'm like, you text me. And they were like
Such effort.
Easy.
I
It's
and they
easy.
were like, but then like what if we want to send pictures to you? You text me or call me? Like,
Yeah.
no, but do it through Snapchat. So like they made like accounts for me. I don't even know if I have the password anymore. Like but I do like so I do have the Instagrams. I literally post whatever, like the bio on it is actually really accurate. It's like I post, then I uninstall it, then I delete it. I literally post like I don't even put thought into what picture is going on there or like what I'm even writing. I'm just like, this is cool, and then click, and I'm done. And it's just like I don't know, like that to me is fun because like I'm not like scrolling mindlessly. Like I'm just like, look, whether you want to see it or not, I don't really care.
Yeah.
This is more for
But you
just me.
Yeah, but you also bring up a good point. Like, having an Instagram is easy because you have photos that you want to share with like a bunch of people, right? But like,
Mhm.
I don't want to text a bunch of people with these photos. Instagram is just one platform, and I just post it on, and all my followers will see. So it's like, it's easy, right? It's convenient, and I
Mhm.
think that's why people are on it. Yeah. So I'm on it because I like to see like I like to just it's kind of like a little blog for myself. Like I like to like post when I had a good time, like it's like a
Mhm.
party.
Instagram on Safari. That's all. That's all I gotta say.
That's literally what I do. Like it's like it's so janky, but like I will open up Safari, go to Instagram, hit the plus icon, add the photos. It's so janky because you can't
It
even do
works.
half the features that are in the application. But I'm also the type that I don't like too many applications on my phone. Like I could show you my home screen. I only have one home screen. And my theory is like if you see the home screen, you should be able to find everything because everything's there. Like
I just have everything in a folder. I have like one home screen, but it's like mad folders.
Same,
No,
same.
like it's like, and I if I don't use an app for more than a week, then I don't, then it's uninstalled, it's gone. Like, so that's that. Like that's my home screen. You should, in theory, be able to find everything you need on that home screen, and you're done.
Bro.
Yeah.
Like
It's-
I'm very particular, so
I
which
also have only one page, and it's like a bunch of widgets, so it's even like less
mhm.
apps because the widgets take it up. But
like if I counted my applications right now that were non-Apple, it would probably only be about like 10. I it and I feel like that all makes sense given the context of this episode, why my stuff is set up that way. But eh.
So I think as I've gotten older, the appeal of social media has decreased and declined for myself. Um, I very rarely ever post on my story. I mean, if I do, I usually repost other people's stories, and it's usually to say happy birthday, like I did today. um, and just because like I think it's a lot of effort
Mhm,
to like
mhm.
put on my story, and I need to like align it or like I don't know, like I don't know what these young kids aesthetics are nowadays.
No, I just text the person or call them saying happy birthday. Like
Yeah. Um, and then I guess like I don't even post on Instagram often. Like I think all my recent posts have all just been like anniversary posts. So it's like yearly yearly posts or like a happy birthday like thing. Um, and then so I think I used to scroll a lot. Um, but then I think at a certain point, and I think for me, I just scrolled so much in the past that I've absorbed so much content that the content that I look at now is just so repetitive that it just forces me to not scroll. And
mm,
I'm like, oh, I saw this already. So it's not the best, right? Because I'm basically admitting that I've indulged so much that
Hold
I've
up.
seen everything.
Wait a minute. But
Hold on, wait a
hold
minute.
up. Wait a minute. You send reels to us all the time.
Right. So I send you guys reels all the time, but like I don't mindlessly scroll through like
Okay.
my Explorer page.
So how do you get to the reels?
I just look at my Explorer page and I just look at the reel and I just send it.
Ah, okay. So
Like
it's
my
just like the
content, yeah, my
first
content's just
page.
fresh, yeah. Like
Okay.
it's just fresh there. But I'm not scrolling through or like through YouTube. Like one, I don't really like shorts. And then I really only look for content now that's I suppose it like that piques my interest.
mm,
Like I watch a lot of like cooking videos and a lot of like camping videos, things that along that so things that like will teach me skills. I don't watch things just to really watch things. Um, so I would say like for myself, that's how I prevented myself from mindlessly scrolling.
mm,
Um, I think what I've seen that works for other people though, um, people set those like locks or like prevents you from like
oh yeah,
accessing like your app or whatever.
like the screen
Um,
on time thing.
yeah, and obviously it requires a certain level of self-discipline. Um, but I would figure that if you're serious to even set the screen time for it, then you're probably already on the right journey. So
Mm,
therefore, you're developing the self-discipline anyways. Um, I've seen that work, and honestly, like at some point, you just have to realize that social media provides nothing but just immediate gratification. and give you it doesn't give you any more than that. Um, and I think the true value in social media is that you're able to exchange information
Hmm.
through a mediated platform. I think I've basically just explained the internet, but um, I think those are like the very promising aspects of social media. But aside from that, I think it's very performative.
Agreed.
Uh, Not necessarily my cup of tea anymore. I mean, I also sometimes only keep it just so I can like stay up to date, like with things like Twitter for myself is like my news channel,
Hmm.
like following what's going on in the world, what's the new lingo that all these kids are using, and I'll
I just
look up
found
on
out what
Urban
Riz
Dictionary.
meant like last week.
You found out sooner than me
Yeah,
somehow.
I found out what Riz meant like a week and a half ago, and it was
And also,
amazing.
I learned from you what a soft launch was, so it's okay. You're not like that behind. 'Cause I don't
No, I'm a
know.
I'm a
I don't know
boomer.
either.
Like,
Linda and I were our friend group were they were just asking like what Riz meant. And I was using it like all of like 2 weeks ago. And the best part was our friend was like nodding. He's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Like we're all like I'm in my late 20s. Like all the other like friends are on their like early 30s. So the guy was like nodding. I was like, word, like you know what Riz is, right? And then later on the next day he goes, guys, I'm not gonna cap. Uh, what does Riz mean? And I was like,
I
yo,
don't think I even picked up on that word that you were saying.
really?
Yeah, I don't. I think like sometimes. Oops, sorry, I got cut off. But yeah, I just didn't realize. I just sometimes when there's new lingo inserted into your conversation, I just kind of brush it off. Like I know the.
Oh,
oh,
her microphone,
I don't know.
her internet.
But I think I understand what Linda was saying. It's just like they understand the context of what you're saying within it, regardless of the understanding the actual word or not.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like the perfect example is like where I don't know if you've ever watched Glass Onion, but like the moment where like Edward Norton's character says "inbreathiate," you're kind of just shrug it off and you're just like, okay.
Yeah.
But then you realize like when you read the subtitles, like that's not a word. But like the context of the moment is like he's meeting all his friends, and Edward Norton's character says, "Can we all just take a moment to inbreathiate and just enjoy the moment right now?"
So
And everyone
iconic.
shrugs it off. Like everyone's just like, yeah, yeah, let's just breathe.
Radiate?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then like you like when you read the subtitles, especially because we watched it in theaters first, Pia, myself, and like, and then when you see it again with subtitles, you're like, yo, that really like this man really making words up for no
I feel
reason.
like that's I feel like that's just fitting for like the genre and like I guess his character is probably just some like
He's like an Elon Musk, basically.
okay, that makes sense then. That's a
Yeah.
very fun character.
Yeah.
Like, but it's like that. Like, it's like that's why I understand what Linda's saying when she mentions that, like the context of it, like yeah, like they got Riz, man. Like it's just it's nice, and you're like,
Yep.
sure.
Or when they were like on God for real.
Okay, I still don't know what that means. I've heard people say it.
It's literally just for real. Like
So then why not just say for real? See, that's my problem with all these like made up Urban Dictionary words too. Is like, okay, if you're saying no cap, then why don't you just say I'm not lying? What is so hard about
it's like
saying it's not a lie than
Or
no cap?
no joke, no
Yeah,
joke.
like no joke. Like
I don't know.
this is what's trending.
that's my bone to pick with all of this stuff. Like yeah, like John, like
Yeah, I learned all this from John.
no, not
Wait, what?
John,
Oh,
like John, like
Oh,
JAWN, and I'm
what is
like,
John?
It's a Philly term. So when you say like
Oh,
something's like a John, it's just like, oh, this thing here. Like, oh, this John right here, or like
Oh,
you like pick up like multiple
Um,
things and you're like, oh, these drawings, like anything's a drawing. Like,
uh,
see
But
the
see,
walking urban dictionary
I
right
wouldn't
here.
have known that if you had
Me-
explained it. To me, I'm just like, well, you're just picking up things.
they,
Uh, I
yeah,
guess like two plus
it's
yeah.
an
two is
item,
4.
anything's a drawing.
But like that's my bone to pick. Okay, I will take that.
I think at this point,
We're just old.
I just use it just to confuse my friends.
In spite, out of spite.
Yeah, or like I think I just use it just so like no, I think no, never mind. It's really just to confuse my friends. I
But
think it's just funny.
but I think what's hilarious is like they're looking at you and they're like, yeah, yeah.
Me,
It's one
that's
person.
me.
No, because Lyndon goes, "What does that even mean?" And then other friends was just like, "Yeah, word."
Like I think that's the best part is that it's literally the definition of what you said in the beginning of this whole episode is like fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
It's
Full circle.
Yep.
like we're
Full
literally
circle.
back at the full circle moment, and it's like honestly like the like when we were playing Valorant and like you guys were saying Riz, I was just like, yeah, sure, like yeah,
I have that.
like yeah, Riz, like yep, and then like the chat was popping off, and they were like, yeah, like Mango, you got Riz, and I was like, yeah, sure, yeah, I got Riz, like absolutely, and then like. And then I mute myself from the call, and I'm like, "What is Riz? Chat, can you please explain to me what Riz is?" And like
What
they
is
were like,
Riz?
and then they wouldn't answer the question. Like they would be like, "Oh, it's what you and I have," and I'm like, "That doesn't answer the question for me. I'm sorry."
Riz or like I don't know. I feel like I said a lot to Linda this past couple of years. Like I
Drip.
think yeah, I'm surprised you didn't know what drip was.
Yeah.
Okay, I
Drip.
know drip. Come on,
Oh
Or like
god, now I'm the older
like
one.
I
Wait,
know
what?
drip.
Drip or drown. I mean, you are the
What
oldest
is
one.
drown?
Oh yeah, I am the oldest one. Yes, that
It's
is
no,
true.
it's like the terms like drip or drown, drip or die.
Oh,
Like either like
Oh,
drip or you drown. Like
I
I
that's
did
all.
not.
see.
I did not know
It's
that.
like it's like the equivalent of do or die.
Or
So
like go big or home.
so
Yeah,
then
same
just
thing. Like drip
say
or
that.
drown.
Just say go big or go home.
Drip or
But
drown.
trendy. It's trendy.
Just say. Oh
I
my.
mean, go big or go home was like one of those words like before. So
But
it's just inevitable.
but I will say, in an effort, and I guess this could be the cap to the question, but like in an effort to educate myself on the new lingo, I put a channel point thing for the stream that's basically teach me a new word. I
That's
don't
cool.
think anyone's ever like redeemed it yet, but it's just like I just like who really sat there and said, "Yo, Rizz." Riz. Yeah, that's the one. Like it's just,
Or
I
like
think like,
zesty.
okay, what is that?
Oh yeah,
Like you
zesty.
like flare?
is that a thing?
Eh,
Or like is something like okay, let me guess. Is it like oh like that person's looking real zesty right now. Let me
Yeah, I
go
think
over to
that's
them and buy them a drink. Like
yeah. I think you could use it like that. Yeah, you could use it like that.
okay. So it is what I thought it was. See, but like fake it till you make. I'm like, yeah.
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 I think like one last thing I had to say about the question was instead of going to sorry, I just
Appreciate that effort.
Bringing
I'm
it back,
sorry.
bringing it back.
Bring us back home, Pete,
It's
please.
'cause, like I also had answers to the other questions, but I forgot them. So I'm like now I'm trying to like say it before I forget it.
No,
But
put them on. Just put them on.
Speed round,
Well,
speed round, speed
basically-
round.
Let's go.
instead of like focusing on the short form, just like I try to watch the long form things, and at the same time try to do like mindless work I wanted to do, whether it was like stuff like doodles. So I would, for example, put reruns of Schizo in the background, or like sing Ryan Higa songs while I'm drawing, and like you're technically focused on one thing. It's like a 10 to 20 minute video. That kind of helps you at the same time do something you wanted to do and not just like be mindless, but still be entertained, I guess. Okay, that's all I had. But we can go back to slang if you want.
No, it's okay.
I
It's
didn't mean to
okay.
bring the flow.
We came full circle
It's
with
okay.
fake it till you
Fake
make
it till you
it.
make it.
I think that's a perfect ending.
I have to say it. I don't usually interact with chat, but you guys are really funny.
Yeah. I
So,
saw Vivian.
Shameless plug. If you guys are watching this, you can watch it live on Twitch. But anyway, Vivian said charisma and Ginger said charisme. That's too good.
That's funny.
But yeah, so so if you've made it this far, thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed our answers to your mental health questions. And again, please take what we said with a grain of salt. We're not professionals, but if you are seeking help, please go find the available resources. We'll try to link some in the show notes below, or you know, the most commonly ones. So you know, if you need help, to get help. But is there anything you guys want to say prior to us finishing this episode off? Anything you want to plug? Shameless plug?
Shameless plug. I saw Vivian comment like the first initial of my therapist's name. Shout out to my therapist. But yeah, get help. Links below.
Get good, bro. Get help.
Good.
John, Linda, anything?
No. Drink water.
That's
Hydrate.
that's important.
Be gentle with yourself.
How about to do
aggressive? Be aggressive.
Be gentle with yourself.
Yeah, no, and it's
So
again, like, get help. You know, like, talk to people that you trust and you know will take care of you, and hopefully everyone gets better. So with that being said, we're gonna end this episode. Thank you for listening. We'll see you on the next one. We're gonna record the next one literally right after this. See you in like 5 minutes. Or maybe depending on when this releases.
what is he doing?
Oh, is he dabbing? Oh no.
What's it called?
Hit
The
wall.
whoa.
Yeah. See,
Yes.
I got Riz.